Many people have an idea about creating a certain kind of book, and this is not limited to people who normally think of themselves as writers. They focus on one part of the process, but not another part that is pretty important, and that is what I'm going to talk about in this video. So I am back after an unintended break in producing these YouTube videos. Things got pretty busy around the end of last year, the beginning of this year. Work around the end of the year tends to be very busy. And I've just been kind of tired and busy. Did I mention that I was busy? I probably did mention that. Anyway, in this video, I want to talk about a certain kind of book that a lot of people want to create, even if they're not the type of person who thinks of themselves as a writer. And that type of book is called a children's book. I think there's a lot of motivations behind this. Many of us have good memories from early childhood of having books read to us, maybe by a parent, maybe by a teacher, maybe by an extended family member, whatever. We have these cherished memories from childhood of being read to, and we want to create something that other children would enjoy experiencing that way. I have gone down that same path, and I can speak from experience about creating and self-publishing a children's book without having the name of Dr. Seuss or some other popular names. I like visual aids in this channel, and so of course I'm going to show you my children's book. Two Boys, Two Planets. I'm going to talk about this book both in terms of its background and more generally about what it is like to create and release a children's book that nobody else has ever heard of before. So going back to the origin of Two Boys, Two Planets, which, by the way, I'm not real happy with the name or the cover. I would like to re-release it with a modified cover to make this title stand out a little bit better. You can see it doesn't work very well. And the title itself leads to some unfortunate circumstances in terms of book placement with other books. So I would like to release it again, and maybe one of these days I'll have time for that. But going back to the beginning of that book, I wrote the words for this book many years before I actually published it, and I put a lot of thought into the experience of the reader. Really, what I was trying for was something that an adult could read to an early reader, a beginning reader, and the beginning reader could start learning words, and this is very early education in terms of reading. And so I thought about word repetition, word length, word complexity, etc. And I tried pretty hard to make this a story that would be interesting, but also educational, and also, in addition to the aspect of learning reading, it was supposed to be an introduction to the idea of exploring and maybe even colonizing other planets and space in general. So there are some personal history aspects behind that, because I grew up, my mom was very much into like space exploration. She would wake me up to make sure I could watch rocket launches, or she would have astronaut themed birthday decorations, that sort of thing. I wanted to have something that kids could read by themselves, with just like piecing together very basic words, or have an adult read to them. And so I wrote out the words for it, but there was no artwork, and I'm not an artist. Those words just sat in a file on my computer for a long time. And years later, when my oldest daughter was, I think, a senior in high school, I saw some art samples from her best friend, and I thought, I wonder if she would be interested in illustrating a book. And so I'll bring this cover up once more. I talked to her about it, and she agreed. And so this book is not just by Stuart J. Whitmore. It is illustrated by, if I can do this right, I never can, illustrated by Aurora Peterson. also known as Rory, and we'll call her Rory in the rest of this video. So again, Rory was the best friend of my oldest daughter at the time, and we kind of sat down together and talked about what we thought could happen with this book, and she created the illustrations for it. I actually have the original art still with me. Rory, I still want to get this back to you. You probably won't see this video, but still, I think these are yours, not mine. But anyway, I do have the original artwork, which I'm still very fond of. It's a very, I don't know, I have a hard time putting it into words, but I enjoy the artwork, and I still think it's probably the best part of the story, not the words that I wrote. After she agreed to doing the project with me, she created the artwork, and then I scanned it, and then this was in the pretty early days of self-publishing on Amazon. Create Space, for those who know that name. And so we published it, and we sold a few copies. I sent a copy to my elementary school because I thought, I just wanted a copy of my book in the library where I had other books read to me. That's the background of that story. It is still available for purchase. I have not pulled it, even though I want to re-release it. Right now it's still available. Look in the description and you'll see the link to that. But let's talk more generally about releasing a children's book that nobody's ever heard of. Lots of books are published that nobody's ever heard of, and that's normal. As soon as a book comes out, of course it's new to the market, nobody's ever heard of it before. But with children's books, it's a bit different, because a lot of the motivation for buying a children's book, as a parent, as a teacher, whatever, is to share with children an experience from the reader's childhood. Your parents did not read Two Boys, Two Planets. Nobody's parents read Two Boys, Two Planets to them. There are people who enjoy that multi-generational exposure, Dr. Seuss being an obvious example. So when you grow up and you have your parents read a Dr. Seuss story, then you have your own kids, or maybe you're teaching kids in a school, you're like, oh, I want to share this story that I enjoyed so much as a child. And so you go out and buy a copy. Great. But you don't buy a copy of a book that you didn't grow up having read to you or reading on your own. That's not to say that independent writers can't have some success producing children's books, but that generational memories and wanting to share good things from childhood with the next generation, it does not happen with a newly released children's book. So if you want to produce a children's book, I say go for it. I know there are people taking a variety of approaches to doing the artwork. Maybe they can do their own. Maybe they can hire somebody. Maybe they use an AI, whatever it may be. Maybe using stock images. Go for it. Give it a try. But don't expect a lot of sales unless you do a lot of marketing, and very targeted and clever marketing, to get past the I've never heard of this problem with children's books. Unless, of course, you are Dr. Seuss or Dr. Seuss's estate and can just bring out a new book that was not published before and just say, hey, this is another one from, and we're just like, oh yeah, that's great. But if you're not that person, then it will be challenging. It will be challenging to get the attention, to make sales, and have your book read by the children that you want to enjoy your story. So that is enough of my poorly put together, tired brain discussion about children's books. Speaking from experience, just not speaking with very clear mind, because I'm tired. So anyway, that's enough about that. If you liked this video, please click like. If you like my channel, please subscribe. Maybe even hit the bell icon. And that is all for now. and I hope to see you soon.